quite hard to swallow for ordinary retail investors who have got billions of pounds left in this fund. I mean, it's a very unusual move for a fund to be suspended in this way, and now investors are just being left and being told to be patient before they can get their money out. And already with confidence so low in the fund, it's going to be an enormously difficult wait for them before they can actually make a decision about what to do with their money.
Yeah, at least 28 days. Do you think it'll end up being longer than that?
It sounds like it's going to be much longer than that. What Woodford looks like he's got to do is get some of those very fiddly, unquoted, unlisted biotech stocks that he's got in there and move them around, either sell them off, wait for them to be floated on the stock market, or move them into his other investment trust, the Patient Capital Trust, and hope that that can kind of rebalance his fund and push it a bit more towards the traditional companies that people invested with him in the first place. The
trouble is, though, people can smell blood in the water now. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for him to avoid a fire sale, isn't it?
This is all going to be about confidence now. He's shut the funds because he wants to have more liquidity to help stem the outflows in it, to mean that he can reshuffle his stocks. But once that fund reopens, it's going to be very hard to see how anybody's going to have confidence left in him. This is a man who became a star fund manager through his time at Invesco. He built a huge reputation and has seen it slowly ebb away, largely through what I believe is his own hubris. He's taken big bets on biotech companies, bets that people didn't necessarily want him to take.
And do you think that was because he was running his own show? Do you think at Invesco he would have liked to have done that, but he was stopped from doing so by the powers that be?
Well, that's a good theory. I always think fund managers are a bit like football managers. You know, they do brilliantly well when they're at one club, and then they move to another club and they don't do brilliantly well. And you can never quite tell how much is going on behind the scenes. You know, who's telling them to buy other players, who's stopping them from buying rubbish players. And you could say the same thing has happened at Woodford there. Does he have the same level of diligence being placed on him by senior people now that he's the boss?
Well, quite. Football's a very good analogy because he's going to collect something like £6 million in fees over the next 3 months. I mean, should he really be collecting fees from people when he's gated their fund?
Technically, you can see why he's still collecting the money. He's got a lot of tinkering to do, a lot of management to do. But if he's so desperate to get some integrity back, I think he really needs to think about giving some of that money back to investors who have stuck with him this far and are now being asked to just act on faith.
And what about the implications for Hargreaves Lansdown and St James's Place? I mean, they've put literally thousands of their clients into this fund. Well,
there has been, ever since January, when Hargreaves Lansdown in particular redid its best buy lists and kept Woodford in there was lots of questions about why it remained. There have been calls, and in the Sunday Times we've been calling for much greater transparency over these so-called best buy lists. They could find themselves facing a lot of scrutiny now about the way that these work, how influential they are, how much money they pump into arrangements with people like Neil Woodford.